see how an engineer plays tic-tac-toe? In English.
First, you have to put a circle or X on everyone, and the other draw. If you draw circle and the other draw X, and you go. And if you have a line, you win. But line have to practice. Yeah. Everybody know.
Okay. Interestingly, nobody except for I think it's the Indonesian group, who told us you have to make a square, right? I think it's Andy who said you make a square. Although this is not really a square. I mean, a square is supposed to be something like this. That's a square. But for me, probably our local people would say, write a Chinese character, which means a well, 井字. That's how a Chinese local student would say, write a Chinese character, 井. But an English speaker would probably say, draw two parallel lines. And then go across these parallel lines with another two parallel lines. Okay? Then you have to choose who goes first, right? There are a lot of things we assume we know. We feel this is such a common game, we don't need to say too much. So Xiujing you say this, and so forth, and because we assume we all know how to play this game. All right, this is simply to arouse your interest and to pay attention to symbols, because that's our topic today. There are three types of signs: icon, index, and symbol. An icon is something that looks like it. That's an icon. For example, you take a picture of, say, 卓越. Take a picture of Joe, then that picture is an icon of Joe. Or I can draw a picture of Joe, although a painting may not be exactly 100% similar to Joe's features. However, it resembles Joe. That's an icon. An index is something which means point to. Index, like your index finger, right? You use your index finger to point at things or point to a certain direction. Certain signs are used to point to something else. For example, if you see smoke, what does that point to? If you see smoke, yeah, Jean? Fire. So smoke is an index of fire, right? I just say Joe's picture is an icon of Joe, or a painting of Joe is an icon of Joe, but smoke is an index of fire. Now, suppose now the ground is shaking. What does that index? The ground is shaking. Earthquake. So shaking is an indexical sign of earthquake. When we move to symbol, that's very arbitrary. Sometimes you don't see any relationship between the sign and the meaning it signifies. It can be very arbitrary. Now let's use a bear, for example. If I draw a bear like this sign is iconic, right? It's an icon. It looks like a bear. Now, if I use this part of the bear, of course I have to choose which part of the body to use. to indicate that's a bear. If I put eyeballs, you probably won't tell me that's a bear, right? If I put his nose, you won't associate his nose with a bear. But if we put his palm here, okay, then you would associate this sign as an indexical sign of a bear. Of course, when we move from more iconic to more indexical and all the way to more symbolic, it goes more and more increasingly arbitrary. There's no resemblance between the sign and the signified, the thing that you want to indicate, the meaning. So for example, a symbolic sign, if we write in English, it's B-E-A-R. This sign is very arbitrary. Why a bear is called a bear? It's because English native speakers say so. Now in Chinese, we also use a symbol, a very arbitrary sign. It's written like this to indicate a bear. I think I'm correct. Is this Indonesian, Malaysian, beruang, which means a bear, right? So in Indonesian and Malaysian, this is the sign, arbitrary sign, symbol, to indicate a bear. I hope I'm correct. I'm not quite sure. This is supposed to be Mongolian. This is supposed to be Mongolian. This means a rabbit and this means a bear. I don't know if I'm correct. So, do you know?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, maybe. Actually, there is words which is written. There is big P, and beside of the two, there is written words. Yeah, there is word.
My interpretation is this means bear. I'm not sure if my interpretation is correct. Is this current Mongolian writing or not?
No, it's our traditional.
It's what?
Our traditional writing we don't use now.
Oh, okay. No wonder. I was kind of suspicious, this might be out of date. This must be traditional or, old style. Anyway, again, this is still arbitrary, right? Why is it written in a certain way to represent a bear? That's totally conventional. It's arbitrary. If you look at these signs, you would say, if you see this sign, it's more iconic, right? You see someone who's running, okay? Iconic. And this sign is more indexical, right? It points to a certain direction. Go, run that way. And this is more symbolic, right? You could have used Chinese character, 火, and so forth, to symbolize this fire exit. So again, there are many different signs from iconic to indexical to symbolic. Again, why is a dove a symbol of peace? That's also arbitrary. It doesn't have to be peace. It can be something else. Okay, now I'm gonna watch a video clip.
各位乡亲，投票的时阵有几项爱特别注意。即届的选举有3张票，一张是选总统，一张是选立委，另外一张是选政党。转年来的时阵，慢慢仔来爱看互详细，就亲像蔡英文是1号，咱会用有白锁的印仔放伫空白的4角格仔内，唔通用你家己的印仔，还是手印落去转，那安尼会拢总变成废票啊！即届的选情非常的紧张，千万唔通互你的选票变废票，请各位乡亲甲咱斗宣传，爱转我对哦。
Okay, so what do we just see? Can somebody interpret for Zotbata? Michelle? Yes, Michelle Ding.
Okay. In this election, we have three things to vote. Yeah, and first is the president, and then anyway, some three things. And for he teaches the people who use traditional to speak Taiwanese. So he speaks spoke in Taiwanese, and then he asks them to vote correctly, how to vote correctly, step correctly, not to use your personal name or use your fingerprint. No, it's not about yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that's a presidential election. When it's approaching, you have to educate the public how to cast your ballot, how to make the choice of your favorite candidate. So when you indicate your choice, it makes a big difference whether you use the correct symbol to indicate, the best candidate, or you use your name chop to make it invalid, or you put your fingerprint there, again, to make it invalid. So you have to educate the public how to vote. Let's look at, again, another example.
今年立法會選舉，我一定會投票嘅。咦，使唔使帶筆呢？
選票要接號快票箱，點接㗎？
咦，投票要帶身份證明文件，咁邊張至啱呢？
投票其實好簡單，只要喺9月20日上午9點至晚上9點，到指定票站帶同自己嘅永久性居民身份證，將身份證交予票站工作人員，核實過投票資格之後，就會取得選票，可以進入劃票間。用劃票間嘅印章喺候選組別對應嘅空格上吸印，之後將選票向內對接2次，放入票箱就可以啦。
明白晒。
記得帶身份證，最好帶埋投票通知書，咁就唔會去錯投票站啦。投票話咁易，程序你我都要知。
Okay, it's in Macau. Macau is Cantonese speaking, right? And interestingly, because of the influence of Portuguese Western influence, the way they indicate their preference is something in between. They still use a seal, 盖章, a seal. That's very Chinese culture. But, a seal with a check like this. That's how they indicate their best candidate, which is very different from Chinese culture, right? In Chinese culture, you put your seal there, but the seal somehow, they have to remind you, don't use your personal seal. 不能用私章, right? Don't use your personal seal. That shows how a seal plays an important role in Chinese culture. Now let's look at how they vote in the Philippines.
Hi, we're from Yahoo Southeast Asia, and here's a quick video guide to the first automated elections in the country. PCOS, or PCOS, stands for Precinct Count Optical Scan. It is the machine placed in each precinct during the election. An election officer operates the PCOS machine using an electronic key. Once the machine is on, it will ask for a username and password. Before you can vote, an election officer needs to verify your identity. Once that's done, you will be given a special ballot and a marker that you will use to shade ovals near a candidate's name. Word of warning: be careful when shading the ballot. Each voter is entitled to one ballot only. Make sure you get it right the first time. So it's best to have a list of the candidates that you want. Then, go over it carefully. Then shade the ovals near the candidate's name of choice. The special ballot contains a list of all the names of the candidates, from the president down to the local councilors. You can see an oval next to each name. You only need to shade these ovals. No need to write names. Shade the oval completely. By this we mean, the counting machine will not accept any other markings like a check, an X, a dot, or an incomplete shading. The machine will reject those markings and will not count it. Word of warning: don't overvote. The the machine will not count those votes. If you vote for 2 presidents, for example, your vote for that specific contest will be rejected, but not the entire ballot. For positions where a voter is allowed to choose more than one candidate, a voter can undervote. For example, if you choose to fill up the 8th slot for the 12th senatorial spot, then your votes are counted. So again, keep a list of all your chosen candidates. Use that as a guide when you vote on election day. You don't want to forget your candidates on election day. When you're done voting, bring your ballot to the election officer, who will ask you to insert it in the PCOS machine. Remember, you will be the one feeding the ballot into the machine and not the election officer. As this happens, the small screen in the machine will show the number of ballots fed or casted. Once the election day is over, the election officer will print the election results using the machine's thermal printer. The election results will show the votes casted. Copies of this can be given to poll watchdogs and other parties accredited by the COMELEC. The results are then electronically sent to the Municipal or City Board of Canvassers, then the Provincial Board of Canvassers, and the National Board of Canvassers. At the same time, those same results are sent to a secure system that will now allow COMELEC to publish advanced results on a secured public website. Results are also sent to accredited third parties, like the official Citizens Arm and Media Umbrella organizations.
Okay, you can see they're getting more and more technologically savvy, right? It's all automatic. But again, before you can be automatic, you still have to indicate using a marker to make a circle. And there are different ways of making the circle valid. Okay, just review. In Chinese culture, the ballot is printed in a certain way, right? Because of Chinese characters are written in certain ways. And it's associated with a seal, which represents our identity. Fingerprint also is a symbol of identity. And here, proper shading makes a big difference. Anything other than this is invalid. Okay, this will lead very naturally to Florida vote conflict because there are certain ways to vote in Florida. Now, let me describe what happened 25 years ago when I was in the US. That's how I voted, by flipping the switch. You know, there are several candidates, flip, or this. That's very low tech, right? Very low tech. And if you finish, you push the bar to the other side to clean the slate. Then the next person can vote. Flip the switch. Flip the switch is like turn on and turn off a switch of a light. That's flip the switch. It's very low tech. That was 25 years ago in the States, in New York. It's upstate New York where I voted. Okay, now this is the Florida vote-o-matic system. Vote-o-matic, it's not automatic, it's vote-o-matic system. In other words, you use punch cards to vote. How do you use a punch card? Again, in the US, there are so many voting places in 50 states. Each state, each county has its own way of voting. And because it takes a lot of money to modify or to change your voting machine, that's usually their lowest priority. That's why if you already have a certain way to vote, it's very unlikely for the government to change the voting procedure because you only use it, the most once a year. You don't want to invest a lot of money to modify your machine, to update your machine. That's why we have a lot of very old-fashioned, low-tech voting methods in the US. This is one of them in the year 2000.